Oh my, I heard a rumor there was another show that just ended approximately 20 seconds ago. How's everybody doing? Definitely wanted to pause before starting because, well, Allison and Lynn live together and there's only so much of a studio that can be shared. So Allison should be here within a few minutes or so for a while. And we'll talk about the news. And this should be entertaining show. We've got a lot going on, and it never ends. It is an exhausting, trying time. But let's start off with first off, how's everybody doing tonight? I'm going to talk for a minute and make sure I see everybody roll in, which I deeply appreciate. And I see the chat is coming through here. Excellent. I'm still getting used to this software. This is wave.video. We normally use StreamYard, all of us, but I've been experimenting with it. I really like it. You'll see that my logo has the two lines. There's a lot of features. It's more complex than I even know what to do with. So I definitely would like to see this do well, but I want to learn all of it. Like you could do crazy things like put people in circles and angles and have like a TV screen, all sorts of cool things. But that's enough for the internal stuff. Let's start off with a light story. I like to do this occasionally, or I guess it's light. I don't know if it's light. Turns out that I'm following a lawyer, so why not a story about a lawyer in Miami? And this lawyer, a lot of lawyers, I think that actually came up with Viva and Barnes. David was talking about how after 5 years, either they're crazy or they're trying to get out of being a lawyer. Well, this Miami attorney apparently was tired of being a lawyer. So he took up a second career as a bank robber. He hit 5 banks in the past 3 weeks. Wow, this is an old story. So, okay. A couple years ago, a Miami attorney, I love how I check the date before I get on hand. How tall am I, Blake J? I'm 6'2". I actually have met both David and Lynn, and they're very, very similar in height. It's pretty funny. Barnes and I are pretty close to the same height. I don't really notice that much of a difference. And yes, Mike Bruno is here. Thrilling. Anyway, this lawyer apparently robbed the 5 banks. And then what's pretty funny about it is they went into his career and, well, it turns out that he said he went to Duke. And then they contacted Duke and Duke had never heard of the guy. So not so much of a lawyer, but it is a good second job. I agree, Kathy Trout. Trout, sorry. I mean, it lends into comments about, money and charges and lawyers and stealing. So, yeah, I guess it definitely kind of falls into that category. And let's see, what do we have next? Okay, so our billing on the thumbnail was essentially what everybody is talking about, or many people are talking about, and that's gas prices. And I don't know where they're going to go with this. This is a complete, utter nightmare. And I also am tired of the fact that we're passing forth. You're expecting a picture of legal mindset. Here's a secret for you, Jay Liebgott. I talked to Andrew Esquire. Andrew Esquire, I like to call him, since he uses his last name as his professional title, which is anyway. he knows the guy, or he's at least seen the guy before, because his parents live in that same area, and I think they've crossed paths. So that is pretty funny. Anyway, did Biden lie about his schooling? Biden lied about a lot of things, and Biden was famous for plagiarism. I think he lied about his placement in law school, that he claimed to be like top of his class and he was really the bottom of his class or something like that. I'm not completely sure, so don't quote me on it. But he was also famous for plagiarism. He is very, very popular at it. So it's good news, because you do know that he hasn't always had trouble reading other work. So his stumbling through a teleprompter is something relatively recently. He is able to read other people's writing prior with no problems. And welcome, Allison.
Hello. Sorry, I'm a little late.
No worries, no worries. I was
thinking that I was gonna do the handoff between my husband, who was just on sidebar with Viva and Barnes, and then go live, but I forget that they talk for like an extra sidebar after they finish the live stream, and so I finally decided that I was going to have to find my own childcare as usual. So,
well, I mean, Barnes and Lynn, and yes,
and bourbon and
chatting,
girl stuff.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
All
right, so we talked about it, and I didn't get deep into it, but gas prices, how are they for you?
Terrible. They went up. Well, now it's up to $4.29. So I know for some people that's not a lot, but it was $3.59 like 4 days ago. So it's gone up really fast. I've been wanting to just go to a bunch of gas stations and see if I could get some folks who work there on video to talk about what it's been like just changing these prices. And have they ever seen a time like this before? You know,
you can imagine the old guys with a stick going, "Oh shit, go out there." Oh,
yeah, exactly.
Change it up again.
Yeah, the guy, the person who has to do that. So, but I'm gonna have to bring my daughter with me, like man on the street interviews. So I don't know how that's gonna go.
She is your producer,
I may try it. Honestly, I think maybe if I have a kid, I'll be more successful at getting interviews than when I was reporting by myself. Because it's like, come on, who can say no to a cute little kid?
No, I totally agree. And you're like, here, hold this. What do you think of this? First off, would you agree that these prices did not miraculously go up the end of February during the invasion? They were already climbing and about 80% there.
Not where I am. Where I am, it was holding at the same price for a long time. And they were going, I would say, like, I've seen gas prices increase, but I don't know, maybe like 5 cents or something. But at least where I live, it was like literally Friday or Saturday, it was $3.59. And then like Monday or Tuesday when I drove by, it was $4.19.
Interesting. Because it's really not that much higher here than it was, say, a month ago.
Well, you're in Virginia, right? I don't know. Maybe it just differs state to state.
Well, they all do, because they all tax it. I mean, it's a great place to get some, revenue, because they tax it. And that's half of the problem with California. So take whatever the gas prices are, and then California, for example, just levels it with taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say maybe 50% or more of the price has to be taxes there. I mean, it's ridiculous.
We have high gas taxes here too.
No, well, it's a great place, because you're trapped. What are you going to do about it? But I don't think people completely understand. On my local, somebody posted a shot. They just filled up today. I think it was $717.
What are they driving?
They're a trucker.
Okay.
And diesel's costing even more. No. Diesel's even more than gas.
No, I know that, but I mean, $770 is probably. I mean, I've seen some people saying that they, for those 18-wheelers, they're spending like $1,700 to fill up in some places.
Well, I mean, he only got 100 gallons. Maybe he did, maybe it was a half a tank. Or I don't know what they hold, but it's still insane. And where I get frustrated is the responses are, from our illustrious vice president. What do you do? Let's go ahead. Here, what would be a good answer to say? Hey, gas prices are really hard and it's causing hardships for us. Well, we need to transition and get electric cars today. So everybody go run out, just go buy an electric car. Problem solved. And while we're at it, can we talk about what about those electric semis? What about the electric trucks? Okay. What about all those that are, carrying the groceries or moving the products and filling the, Walmarts and everything else? Because diesel is up there even more than gasoline. And that's where I don't think people understand. Not only are we seeing it very directly, like looking at the pump and, oh my God, well, maybe I'll drive less, or maybe I'll cancel that, road trip or whatever. But groceries, we've got to cover this cost because now any kind of shipping. What about jets? Who's going to fly anywhere? Airplane fuel is going to be jacked up there. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I guess from a personal reflection standpoint, it makes me think about when I was an environmental reporter and all of the messages like this that were sent out to us from government administrations. And I live in the state whose governor ran for president on this issue, climate change. And he has failed to meet every single one of his goals at the cost of driving up living expenses for people in Washington state, and refuses to admit that his clean energy initiatives have not worked, or he might say they just need more time or they're working slowly or something, but they have failed every single one of the goals that they've set for themselves. But at the same time, we have had to continue paying the brunt of the cost without whatever the promise was that they said we were going to get. And so it just makes me think about all those times that these messages are, I don't know, this is why we need to do it, because of this problem. What is it really because of that problem? I mean, and I think it's a kind of a kick in the pants for me, because it's taken me some time of being out of that culture to see with fresh eyes how, like, what you just read turns into a corporate news story, and how little questioning of that there is, especially like if you're in a place like Seattle, where I was a reporter, and the vast majority of people are not going to hold you accountable in that market to insane talking points related to climate change, or these talking points, or the laws or taxes or whatever, because they're all like brainwashed. Everybody's kind of thinks the same way, and so they just don't think critically about it. And it's so obvious now, like what you just read and the stuff that I've seen over the last couple of years since I've been out, that there is constant propaganda around this particular topic. And hey, I'm somebody who really cares about natural resources. I care a lot about the environment. And if I felt like there was something that was really going to make an impact, I do it. I am doing it. The way I eat is a huge example of that. But I think it's dumb to sell people on something that is based on false premises, because in the end, you're going to ruin it for everybody. Like you'll ruin caring for natural resources and the environment for all of us, because you've whipped people into this fake narrative around it, and then they're going to never believe anything that you say ever again, and think that everything related to natural resources and the environment is just a bunch of crock of what. And so that it like saddens me really from that standpoint, because I am somebody who really cares about it. But you have to be honest with people about, and also you have to understand that, like in Seattle and especially Western Washington, it was very common for like sort of the I can afford an electric vehicle type person who commutes like 4 miles a day to look down upon the people who lived out in the rural areas, or just the people who couldn't afford it. And I never heard it explained to me until like later in my career that a lot of these policies are just taxes on middle class and poor people. And yet they're sold as like, you should care about the environment, and it's wrong.
Also, okay, you brought up rural, right? Well, you have horses.
Yeah.
So you need a vehicle that's going to tow a freaking horse trailer. There aren't a lot of electric pickups out there, and they're gas guzzlers. Okay, they're not known for their efficiency, but you can't throw. I have a hybrid, I confess, so I guess I'm part of the solution, quote unquote. But I'm not going to throw bales of hay in the back of my freaking car. It just is not efficient. So there's a lot of things that people aren't even thinking about. And on the hybrid front, even CNBC wrote an article. Gas prices are spiking, but don't expect sales of electric vehicles to follow. We've got a supply line shortage. There aren't even vehicles there for them to pick up. Another factor people don't consider is, I don't know if you know, but the average price of like a hybrid to electric vehicle is like anywhere from, say, 4,000 to 15, 20,000 more for the same basic car. So then if you take the cost of fuel, like I still have to buy fuel, I just get more miles to a gallon. I get like 40 to 50 miles to a gallon. But if I break down that price, it would take me like 20 years to make up the price difference, even with the gas jacked up at $7, $8 a gallon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just not an efficient solution. Then if I plug it in, where I am, I'm on nuclear. That's cool. But there's a lot of other places. Well, it's coal. We're worried about the environment, so we're going to be plugging in our car and we're going to be drawing from coal. Mm-hmm. Or fossil fuel that's used to create the electrical, because why can't we have nuclear everywhere? Well, we don't like nuclear. We're scared of nuclear, even though that's the cleanest energy we have out there to scale that can actually power up a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that oftentimes when it comes to these conversations about like climate change or environmental, like, first off, one of my biggest pet peeves is that caring about the environment is almost always framed around climate change, when there's like a gazillion other issues that are, more pressing and require our attention, but we don't talk about them. And in a large part because, the corporations that are in bed with our government are allowed to pollute. But we wouldn't, it's not climate change pollution necessarily. It's dumping shit in the water or whatever else. And we're like, we're going to talk about that.
Pollution,
we're talking about climate change. So that's the first thing, is that I get really, it's annoying that we just associate caring about the environment as climate change. Like that's the issue of our day. And then secondly, the reason that's annoying is because there are so many things that like somebody could do in their local community that are just going to be different in somebody else's community. And, what you may do to reduce your impact on natural resources, maybe in where you live, may be totally different than what I'm able to do or what I should be doing to reduce my impact on natural resources. And we might both agree that reducing impact on natural resources, to protect them for our children and, to keep them healthy so that they continue to provide for us is a good thing. But the way you do it in your area is different than the way I do it in my area. In the same way you're bringing up how like an electric vehicle may be more or less useful depending on the power grid. So yeah, I just get annoyed with this conversation because I covered so many issues, local issues that rarely would ever make it onto the national stage because they're not like ever framed as if the world is going to end if you don't do this in 10 years and everybody has to buy an electric vehicle and all that stuff. And yet they're more important. A lot of these are more important. Water, for instance, is a really important issue that is going to face people very soon. And, in some cases, it's not related to climate change, and public utilities need to be.
How about fires? How about fires where you are? That's a big problem.
Yeah, and that has a lot to do with forest health. I can tell you a lot more if I still worked at the Department of Natural Resources, but they fired me over my YouTube channel. So just always have to let everybody know that one when I have the chance. But yeah, we're expecting a tough fire season. It'll be interesting to see what happens with fewer firefighters who all got dumped over the vaccine. But yeah, that's another issue too. That often gets pushed as a climate change only thing. And it's because we've been spraying chemicals onto forests for a long time and we've allowed for overgrowth. And so there's just a ton of
stewardship. Land stewardship would be very useful.
Yeah, land stewardship is like basic stuff, but climate change. And then people don't understand, like, it's almost like if you frame it that way, then people think the only thing that they can do is like buy something and just buy a new car. And that's like the American way. It's like, well, how do I have a problem? What do I do? Buy something, it's just like, No, there are other ways to figure out how to like get involved in a lot of these issues that never get any attention and don't require buying an electric vehicle. But there's obviously more special interest involved in the latter, I guess.
There's also another principle I think is interesting. Several years back, they were doing like studies in like Berkeley and other areas that were very, very concerned about this. And the number one selling car were Prii. I like to say that as plural, but
Right.
the Prius was the top selling car. That wasn't the only hybrid car out there, but that was the only hybrid car people would buy because visually people would see them driving the Prius and they could be like that South Park episode where the guy rolls down his window and looks out and goes, I have a Prius because I'm doing my part. And I always thought that was just my absolute favorite. And speaking of doing their part, this is an interesting one. Remember Sean Penn? I think you pointed this out to me earlier. But Mr. Sean Penn, Hugo Chavez, Sean, good old boy, fun guy. Well, apparently he is with the Zelensky's chief of staff, and he's colluding with him, and then he's talking to Poland, and he's determining where the jets need to go and the delivery program. So I'm very curious exactly when we nominated or created Ambassador Penn here. I mean, the guy doesn't seem to be very diplomatic when it comes to spouses. I don't know how he gets along with Chris Penn, but I don't know about Ambassador Penn here. This guy is literally involved with governmental figures and trying to pressure. I'm very, 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 very confused about that. And Barnes is in here. Is there something I don't know. I guess it's not technically espionage because he is public about it, but I'll use a term that lefties like. I find it problematic. What do you think?
I think it's weird that the guy left. Allegedly, I saw that he walked to the border of Poland to escape combat. And so he clearly doesn't want to participate in combat, but he definitely wants to escalate combat. That doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, dude, if you like combat and you want to get some fighter jets in, then why don't you just stay? Stay with everybody else, get the gun issued from the government and fight. And so I just love it when people who don't know anything about combat and don't want to participate in combat are like, trying to increase the losses and escalate the conflict. That just seems weird to me. That was my takeaway with him. And I'm so over Hollywood actors like involving themselves in stuff like this. I'm just so over that. Thinking that anyone cares, taking a side profile shot of himself, on the phone, like who took that? Was that him? Did he have a separate phone? Like, it's like, it just creeps me out, like full of narcissism. And then why are government officials like talking to people like him? I mean, I just, about this stuff. I mean, it's just like Sean Penn. I don't know. It's a joke. It's like, I honestly, Eric, I sit back and I wonder to myself, was it always like this? And I just didn't notice it when I was in corporate news. I was just drinking the Kool-Aid and it was always like this. Or is it gone full stupid over the last couple of years to the extent that like, if you still believe that this stuff is just normal, like this just is organically coming about, like these narratives just, this is just real life. Like this is just normal for Sean Penn and this Zelensky guy to just be talking about fighter jets. Like that's normal to you. Dude, I don't know. You need help.
Check this out. It gets worse. Not only is he doing it, but this is a guy in Poland responding back, and he is like an assistant minister or whatever that position might be. Stanislav Zarin, spokesperson of the Minister Special Services Coordinator. Now, okay, I don't know the the full government bit here, but he is, of course, I bow to his blue check mark. I have to, right? And so it looks like a government figure. So we're actually seeing this crazy sideline, weird negotiation going with a commonly known as abusive Hollywood husband. And then, of course, this is class act Sean Penn here, who, when he was hanging out with his buddy Hugo Chavez, any journalist that calls Hugo Chavez a dictator should be jailed. Really? Wow, buddy, you're about freedom. So why are you so concerned about Ukraine? You don't believe in, I guess, wait, hold on. Is this one of those cases that Sean believes in freedom for Ukraine, but he doesn't believe in freedom for reporters or America? I'm very confused. And I know I'm not the brightest candle on the cake, but I think there's a mixed message in there.
I think people that have had makeup artists around them for too long, they've stared in a mirror for too long. They've just lost part of their brain. I've sat in those green rooms. I've sat in those makeup rooms. I don't know. I feel like they've lost a level of their just grasp on reality as far as what their place in the world is. Like, you're just a guy who has a job. Okay, a lot of people know who you are, but I hate to tell you, you're going out of here the same way I am, and all the homeless people you've never met. We're all gonna meet the same fate, and yet for some reason, like, I don't know, some people just act like gods while they're on this earth. Maybe they just don't have enough people around them to tell them the truth about themselves or to hold them accountable to their failures, and they always get a pass. And I guess Sean Penn's an example of like winning the participation award every day. Like, if you just win the award every day and no one ever tells you that, you made a mistake or tells you the truth about yourself, that you just become somebody who can say these things that are totally antithetical and do weird things like take a side profile photo of yourself while talking to some dude about fighter jets in this war. I mean, I worked past tense when I was in news. I worked with a guy who his Instagram is filled with side profile shots. And I mean, it just gets to the point where it's like, does he ask the person like standing there to take his photo but then say, hey, don't take it. I mean, I know you normally take photos head on, like, and I smile and stuff, but this photo I want you to take sideways. Like, what's the conversation ahead of time? What was Sean saying? Like, take the photo and make it look like I'm actually talking to the guy about something really important. Like, it's just so narcissistic.
Well, have you seen the Macron shots? That makes me think of him, because they were saying they released in France or whatever, they released shots of Macron after speaking to Zelensky or whatever after that, and it was like,
I haven't seen them. I'll have to look it up. But I can totally believe that, especially the French. I mean, man, they're good at that.
I'm just blown away. But good news, we have somebody in the chat who I think is defending Sean Penn. I wonder if you could guess who that might be.
Mike Bruno.
Oh my God, you win. It's almost like we knew this for a while. Hugo Chavez was elected.
Trump, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, there you go. You went right for it. And we no problem calling him a dictator, none at all. So yeah.
Yeah, the fascist among us. Yeah, everybody's a fascist. Yeah, well, Trump was elected too, so sit down.
There you go. So that means that all the journalists should be. Oh, Jim Acosta should be in jail. Is that what you're saying, Mike Bruno?
We miss you over on Locals, Mike. Don't forget, your $5 goes to the grocery store just like everybody else.
No, I don't miss you. I don't miss you.
I don't miss you.
I do not miss you. Allison misses you. I do not miss you. Just no. I have to be forthcoming with everyone. I apologize, but no, we're good. No need. On to the next story. Now, this one is a story because I'm kind of shocked. I hadn't heard about it, and you told me about this earlier, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
YouTube suspended The Hill. But here's what is the story. You told me about it, and I was like, oh wow, they did it 6 days ago. The Hill may be back in the morning. I had no freaking idea that The Hill had actually been suspended. And that I think is really, that's the story to me, because it was like I didn't notice. It's like there's so much noise going on right now, with the war and Russia and whatever else, that I just didn't even know. And I subscribe to the Hill. They're one of my news sources, like others. I do try to get different sides, and I'm not a big fan of Ryan Grimm. I will admit that, and I think it is definitely downhill from Crystal and Sagar, even though they can be kind of annoying too. But they were better, I think, on the show The Rising.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, I think it's completely remarkable. And Mike still loves me. Anyway.
Well, one thing about the article that Robbie wrote, and Bill, Doris, and I did this for our supporter-only Tittle Tattle media analysis show, which if you're interested in, you should go support us over on Locals and Rockfin or Patreon. AliceTomorrow.locals.com
Yes, it's in the description, and you can see it right under her.
So that was uploaded today for everybody that's a supporter over there, and we talked about this. And one of the things that concerned me, and Bill told me that Robbie's last name is pronounced Suave.
Oh,
is that true?
No. Please, no.
That's what he said.
Please,
so that's
no,
me,
no.
Robbie is allegedly a libertarian. I question that. His argument in the article that he wrote about getting suspended from YouTube is that, like, basically YouTube doesn't differentiate between reporting and misinformation. And it was kind of like saying that YouTube should differentiate between reporting and misinformation. In other words, hey, we're real news people and we should be able to tell you what's going on, and it shouldn't be called misinformation, because clearly we think Trump's a lunatic, and we said that in the video, but we should be able to play the clip so that you can see what he said. That's what reporting is. I think it's a terrible idea for YouTube to categorize one as a news channel and one as just a person. To me, he's calling for more essentially censorship. That it's going to lead down that road. I would rather us all live and die together. Eric versus MSNBC. If we're going to censor, then everybody should be held to the same rules. And I would prefer there not to be any. But I don't think that there should be a special category of protected YouTubers who are now news that are reporting on misinformation, not spreading misinformation. That's a dangerous, slippery slope for me. So I was disappointed in Robbie's take on it. And that's what we talked about in the video.
Well, and by the way, somebody pointed out that Ryan Grimm is perfectly happy canceling people. And there is a lot of hypocrisy. We've talked about that before, where one side doesn't believe in cancellation until something really offensive and they're really ready to cancel the other side. And there's a lot of revenge factors. So I totally agree. And Kitty, I agree with this. See your point. I can't read it out loud or I'll get dinged by YouTube. I was trying to type that in the chat, but it wasn't flying. But yes, thank you very much for the super chat. And I agree. We still are electing very corrupt people. And I'm very not pleased.
And, this is how this is related. If you can't hear what people say, because say there is a politician that's totally nuts and they are saying crazy things, though we all know from recent history that being called a misinformation agent does not mean you are, right? But let's just say you are. I mean, it would seem like it would behoove an informed electorate to hear what these crazy people are saying. And so the worst thing you could do to keep them out of office, like if you really wanted to keep them out of office, would be to sanitize everything they're saying so that people think they're totally normal. You take away all the weird stuff that they're saying, and now all of a sudden, people are like, oh, that guy sounds great, because you took out all the stuff that was nuts. And right. So I totally think you should be able to hear what your elected officials especially are saying. If they're saying crazy things, you should be able to hear it. And that's one of my big problems with YouTube, is that, like, we're paying the salaries of these people. They're elected to do this work, and YouTube is telling us that we can't even hear what our government officials are doing or saying. That's so crazy to me. But what Robbie's trying to say is, well, some people should be able to tell you about what they're saying, but those should be news people, and they need to say the right things to combat the misinformation that those political leaders are saying.
Yeah, but that's totally elitism. That's him saying I'm elite. He's just saying I'm elite.
Yeah,
I
I
shouldn't be
think he's
canceled. All the other rubbish should be, but not me. Well, I'm important. So yeah,
yeah,
I totally agree.
I don't understand how he's not able to see the danger that path leads down. That was surprising to me. Eric, I got 2 more minutes. You want to do
All right.
anything fun for the last 2 minutes? Do you have any fun?
Oh God. No, I don't have any fun stories. I've
Does
got a
anybody in the
TikTok.
chat have anything fun? Fun,
Oh
fun, fun, fun.
no, sorry, no fun.
Yeah.
But we'll close out more on the free speech angle. But what I wanted to point out is that like RT canceled everywhere, right? And they're
Yeah.
doing the best they can to hide that. I'm not going to say that that isn't propaganda. That Putin is an influence. Duh, obviously. But have you heard of criminology?
Mm-mm.
Okay, criminology is literally what was used during the Soviet Union, where every time they would release propaganda or anything else, there were people who would study, okay, that general is no longer standing next to Stalin, he's 3 down, or whatever. So they were actually drawing intelligence, etc., by letting this information go through and studying what that was. So
Yeah.
why can't we as a people, and we can determine, is that a lie? Is that the truth? Is there some degree of truth there, or at least maybe get an idea of what they're trying to convey as a message? I mean, it is propaganda.
Mhm.
We all agree it's supposedly all propaganda. So that would mean that they're trying to push a narrative. So what is that narrative? And then we can always read it. And then we could look at, let's say, our own propaganda, I mean, news, and then say, here is the internal narrative. And then we can decide for ourselves. That seems
Yeah.
pretty fair.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with that. And it also, it's just weird to me how, I guess that shouldn't be weird, but it's become blatantly obvious that we have higher standards for our adversary, I guess, than we have for ourselves. Because, as you were saying, to try to make the argument that our corporate news is not heavily influenced by, um, our political class, I think is just such a joke. And so it's just another one of these examples of just sort of arbitrary enforcement of policies, really just to suppress information that you don't like, or that um, doesn't fit the direction that you want to go in. But just admit that. Don't say it's because of misinformation necessarily, or influence from the government. Just be like, we just don't like this. We don't want you to see it.
Hmm.
That would be a little bit more honest, I think, because you're not doing that for other, you're not holding the rules don't apply to everybody.
No, not equally. And I get Barnes actually tried to slide one in there, but he's saying, what's the funniest story about Lynn?
Funniest story about Lynn. Oh man. Well, he told one of the funniest stories on the broadcast about how I hung up on him and told him I didn't need any more friends in Florida, because he told me, well, I thought we were like moving towards dating, and we were like had this long distance friendship. And so like he told me he had to tell me something, and I was like excited. Oh, he's going to tell me, that he really cares about me and he wants to like take the friendship to, the next level. And he's like, I need to apologize because I just really need to be friends right now. I don't, I just don't have the bandwidth to like to have a long-term relationship, and I have a lot going on, and I can't just like pick up and move to Seattle. And so I think we should just be friends and just get to know each other as friends. And I go, oh, really? Well, I have enough friends, and I definitely don't need another friend in Florida. So I just hung up on him. That's one of my favorite stories. Actually, another one of my like favorite funny stories about him, when like months later, we didn't talk for months. And I was that girl who would like screenshot his text messages and send them to my friends with like the eye roll emoji and stuff. In a million years, I never thought I was going to marry that guy. A million years. And so your husband's just on fever, right? Yeah, that's true. He was. Anyway, so months later we reconnect. He comes to visit Seattle. We go hiking, and we come down off the mountain, and it's dusk, and we see this Mercedes smashed into a bunch of rocks, and these like kids, but not really. They're sort of like late teenagers kind of meandering around the parking lot. And so I'm like, that's kind of weird. What's going on? So Lynn goes, stay here. He's like, back, like, stay here. And so, I stop for a second and then he starts walking towards him. And of course I don't stay there because I don't listen very well. So I started following him and he goes up to the girl and she said, we took our dad's car and we were doing donuts in the parking lot and we slammed it into the rocks and there's no cell service or anything and no reception. And, now the car doesn't work and we're really screwed because we basically stole the car. Like we didn't tell our dad we were taking his Mercedes out and slamming these rocks.
Ooh.
And he goes, Lynn saw that there was like cracks on the windshield in the passenger side. And he goes, were you sitting in the passenger side? And she said, yeah. And like, without even missing a beat, he like pulls out his laser gun, sticks it in her eye. He's like, what's today's date? What's your birthday? How many fingers am I holding up? He's like, follow the light. He's doing all these things. And she's just like, what the hell? And I'm looking at it and I'm like, who is this guy? He's like, I'm doing a 5-point neuro. Like he just goes and he goes, I thought I told you to stay back there. So I was like, yes, sir. So I go back and I'm not kidding you, man. We drove those kids to a restaurant so their parents could come pick them up. But I was like, who is this guy? Like he's just like, stay here. Walks up to he's like pointing his leg. I'm like, who has one of those on them? You know what I mean? He's like taking her pulse, like, sit down, like moving her head over. Can you see this? Can you see that? Okay, I was just like, okay, this guy's a little nuts. It was like we went to like straight Lieutenant Dan mode. I'm not kidding you. That was one of my like funniest stories. I was like, okay.
Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, like Lynn is not armed as often as he was when we first started dating. I don't know, maybe he's not as scared of me anymore. So, but he was armed on that hike. And I remember like, he was like, I don't know who these kids. So he's just like, he's like sitting there, we're driving and I'm like, okay, I hope this doesn't end poorly. But it turns out they were just like 18-year-olds, normal kids, like everything was fine. But I was like, this guy's intense. It was my first hike with him. He just got to Seattle like 3 days before. I'm like, okay. So that was funny.
Do you get to hear things like 3 bags full and all that?
3 bags full. I don't even know if I know what that means.
Okay. Just a military term.
Yeah. See, I'm a total loser when it comes to all that stuff. Anyway, but that's funny. That was a funny.
No, definitely, for sure.
I just got to go get the kiddo mom stuff, bath time, and you guys know how it is. And Lynn said on the thing how it's funny because it's not funny that he travels so much, but I still like, even when he's here, I still like, there's certain like mom things I still like to do, that I don't know. Once you get past a certain time of the night, the kid turns into a pumpkin and it's not fun.
Well, eventually she'll age out of it.
I know. I tell myself that. Like last night she was up almost, I don't know, 4 hours. And I'm like, Allison, just remember there's going to be a day where she's going to sleep till like noon and never need you, never cry. You're going to be sitting there thinking, I miss my little baby. So just, enjoy it while it lasts, even though you're exhausted.
Or are you going to say, are you ever going to get up? It's time to go to school.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Oh, well.
That too.
Enjoy the moment, and really happy to hear that your horse is doing well and on the mend.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, that's a real miracle. I didn't think she was going to make it through the year. So we're coming up on the anniversary of Chaka's death. Remember that, Eric, last year when that all happened. But we have Zinnia now, who is, I don't know.
Healthy?
She's healthy. Yeah. She eats the trash and she is really good with Lily. I'll give her that much, but she's got a little ways to go before she fills Chaka's paws, I guess. But I'm glad that Sassy made it through 2021. It was not a great year, and she's, it's kind of cool because there's so many veterinarians now who really don't know what to make of it, and it just kind of goes to show that you never know. Like, you never know. Doctors don't know for sure who's going to live and who's going to die. And If
No.
you want to try, like for us, we changed our diet and we kind of decided to watch and wait and see and not just like make any rash decisions and let her kind of take the lead, and she turned around. And so there are a lot of vets that are like, well, who had told me like she's never going to walk again. Well, okay, can I just watch her? Yeah, you can, but I'm just telling you, and sure enough, like she's probably gonna be able to be ridden. She's not just walking normally. She's gonna probably be ridden in a few months again. So just kind of a word to the wise, like you never know, life
Sounds
can
like
take
she
an
decided.
interesting turn.
Sounds like she decided, not the
Yeah. She wants to
not
stay.
the vet, not you. She determined what she's going to do. So
Yeah.
awesome. I will let you get to your producer so you don't get any more
Guys.
trouble with her.
All right. Bye. See you next week, Eric.
All right. Thank you. All right. And let's see here. What stories do we have up next? Interesting story. And this one went around and around in the legal community because it's quote unquote America's dad. The Supreme Court will not be reviewing the decision that freed Bill Cosby. And from the information I have and what I know, I agree with this. I think that they should not address it. I'm not going to go around and say that Bill Cosby's a nice guy. He's obviously a monster. If everything holds true, not good guy at all. But they scammed him. And I think Barnes would probably agree that the reason why Cosby has to go free is for all the innocent people, and for all of us out there, that there has to be some kind of actual justice. You can't play games with it, make a deal with a guy, put out the word to where he knows, okay, you're fine. Then he testifies in civil and says, oh, you know what? We changed our mind. And then we're going to use your testimony to burn you in the criminal and essentially just get rid of a Fifth Amendment right. That's completely not fair. So I think it's a fair decision. I think that sentence had to be overturned, and the Supreme Court, I think, is correct in not addressing it. I don't know what else they could have done. J.K. Wynn, thank you very much. Remember, there's a transport secretary who had. Oh God, yes, and I'm sure that he is going to, in fact, cure our problems, right? Because we have so much faith in that secretary. What a great guy. All right, so a couple bills have come up, which is interesting. This is something I've railed out about a little bit, and it's interesting. Some people in the chat are saying that they think that Cosby is innocent. I don't know. Bill Barry, Patty Leather. I don't know enough about the details of his innocence or not. I mean, it looks bad, but I cannot sit here and say that I think that the press is full of shit on so many different things and then not say, well, they could have been wrong about that. I just don't know. And I haven't had a big desire to necessarily go deep into the case. In terms of a news story, let's see. I've talked about some transgender issues. And Iowa governor has signed in a restrictive transgender sports bill, essentially saying that those who are born female can participate in female sports. If they are not, then they can't. And that, of course, opens a complete can of worms with a lot of people who feel it's unfair and that it's persecuting a particular group, everything else. But on the flip side of it, surprisingly, in Utah, a Republican governor is going to veto a transgender sports ban. Now that I think is quite remarkable and really surprising. I'm thinking this cannot be helpful to his career in Utah. and Republican. I don't know. That just maybe I'm reading politics wrong, or I have a bad assumptions, but I have a feeling that that's not going to help his electoral future. And the last case that I have here, and this is I don't know. I'd be curious what everybody thinks about this one, but it is another transgender case. Um, Texas appeals court sides with the parent of a transgender teen in the case of alleged child abuse. Now, this one gets really, really squirmy in a lot of ways. Apparently, the parents of a transgender kid are enabling or obtaining or whatever hormone blockers and other medical tools to assist with the transition. The government is of the angle that, hey, this is a potential child abuse case. And I actually, I don't know. I really want to hear or see where you guys are on this, because my leaning is that, yeah, I personally think that children should not be medicated to get on any kind of hormone blockers or things like that that are going to literally cause permanent damage. Now, I'm perfectly fine with an adult, whatever. You could do what you want. That's fine. And I know that the counter argument is that the younger they are, the earlier they do this, the more likely they are to pass. But it's still not right, because there are things that, well, there are kids who are known as, quote, tomboys. I always like to use that example because it's so common. Does that mean that every little girl who likes to dress up as a boy and play with the boys and everything else should immediately be given hormone blockers or testosterone? And but no, because most of them all of a sudden hit puberty and whoop, they suddenly care about boys, or vice versa. It's just crazy. And my view is that the parents who are doing this with the kids, and very, very good point, ADD drugs. I don't like over medicating kids at all. But I would argue that ADD drugs are not permanent. They're not going to make a kid sterile by, interrupting or screwing up puberty. They're not going to cause this kind of permanent damage. I mean, they may cause long-term damage. Don't know. I'm not an expert on ADD drugs, but I'm not a fan of those either way. But when it comes to the transgender question and the kids, I feel like in some of the cases, it's almost like a Munchausen syndrome by proxy, where the parents with their friends or environment can be seen as so woke and indulgent and great and wonderful, and it's really not about them. And Eva wants to know, do I consider circumcision child abuse? I think that's a tricky one. I mean, I don't love it. I don't necessarily see a need for it. It is a very strong thing in the Jewish culture, but then at the same token, I don't believe in female circumcision. I don't know. I'm not in love with the whole thing. I don't have a really strong answer for that, and it's not in. So I am going to stand tall here and say I'm ducking that question. Anyway, I do worry about parents doing that and changing their kids. Now, to get back to the sports question, do I think that transgendered athletes should be allowed to compete? And it's notice that nobody is arguing that a female to male trans athlete is trying to get on to the male team. Anybody ever notice that? I haven't seen a single case of that where they said, oh my, that female to male transitioning person tried to get on the football team, but nobody would let them get on the football team because they're the better quarterback or they're the better linebacker. Never seen any of that. It seems to always be one direction. So I do wonder, why is that? Again, I'm very, very simplistic, but I think about it this way. If it's always one direction, then there's maybe a problem, right? And then when we get into adult sports, I always go to this because obviously, people's rights and how they feel and things like that. I do care about that. I don't want to have anybody put, I don't want anybody down, but let's step back one other step and say, why did we ban Lance Armstrong for life from cycling? Why can't he not do it? You could test him. You could find out he's absolutely clean, no problems, nothing there. Well, the reason why is because of all of the enhancements he has due to doping. The guy has an unreal low heart rate. He has a heart that is larger than average. He was built to such a level of heightened level of ability that nobody else can actually catch up with him if they're doing it normally. So even if he stops, all those gains are still there. So if we go into the sports aspect of it, we could sit there and say, okay, fine, we're going to pump him with estrogen, we're going to take out testosterone, things like that. But guess what can't be fixed? Bone structure, leverage, things like that, you can't change. So it's like somebody has grown up doping their whole life, and then suddenly they say, okay, well, I've stopped my doping, and then they go into the sport. I don't think it's a good deal. Bill Barry, what are you? Is anybody guilty? I think that Lance Armstrong did admit that he did take the drugs. I swear I saw that interview. So, and I'll go with the other thing about Lance Armstrong. I wouldn't even have nearly the issue with Lance Armstrong because I'll be the first to admit that I think they haven't even changed his records because they went like all the way to number 13 and they couldn't find anyone who didn't dope. So I know it's a giant problem. One difference with Lance Armstrong from everybody else, though, is he screwed everybody around him. He threw everybody under the bus. He went after people like crazy. And it wasn't a matter of his just saying, hey, well, what are you going to do? He went after them. And you notice there's not a line of other cyclists who are saying, hey, give the guy a break. We all did it. No, not a whole lot of them. And that's because he was a pretty shitty dude about the whole scenario. And you'll even see in some of the interviews, he admits that he's pretty shitty dude. So I have trouble with and here we go. Yes, they all dope, but again, like I said, they haven't even restated the records, but Lance went after everybody else. If Lance did not go after everybody like he did, I don't think it would have hit him quite as hard. That is the truth. And conservative voices, most everyone in sports equals dopes. Cute. Very, very funny. And yes, I've watched Icarus Netflix doc on doping. By the way, you know who helped the creator of that documentary get all that information? Do you know what happened there? That movie started out with him saying, hey, if I take performance enhancing drugs, I wonder if I could build to the level of a sport. And he couldn't quite get there. And then some people in a 3-letter agency, shall we say, visited him with a little bit of information. And they said, you might want to look into this. And if anybody wonders what I might be talking about, well, I have another channel with Mark Robert called America's Untold Stories. And we have a 3-part series about a particular 3-letter organization and how they have infiltrated Hollywood, the news, they have legacy and family. Check it out. I think you might enjoy it. The CIA is not necessarily your friend. So on that note, back to it. We have the issues of technically somebody doping for life and suddenly competing in sports. So question on this. Why do we have Title IX? Seriously, why do we have Title IX? Last time I checked, Title IX was to make sure it was an even playing field. So that way you could have female athletes performing a sport and getting scholarships, things like that, the same as male athletes, whatever, to keep things even. Give even scholarships, things like that, to help you, or help make things fair over time, etc. But if we're going to just say, hey, anybody wants to go join a sport, and we say that a man can be a woman or whatever, that the transgender athletes are definitely women, then what happened to Title IX? What happens to the women? I do think they count. I do think they should have a chance. I do not think it's cool to have a swimmer who is in the hundreds. I don't know the exact placement, but way up there, suddenly go in and smash every single record. That doesn't seem right. And that's essentially where I'll leave that. Now it's after 10 o'clock. I started late. I do try to wrap this up at as close to 10 as possible. But Joe Neerman of Good Logic is actually on right now with Legal Mindset. And you may want to check that out. A lot of you, it looks like, may already be leaving to check that out. I see the numbers that are plummeting, or they're saying, oh, Allison's gone. Forget it. I'm out of here. So until next time, if you like this, try to do this every week as I can. And I have legal panels on some Fridays. I should have one this Friday because I will have the day off. But every other Friday in general, I have a legal panel with a lot of people you might know, like Aviva Fry, Nate the lawyer, Nick Ricato, sometimes Beyond, Emily D. Baker on civil law on occasion, Legal Bites, on and on. And they're a ton of fun. So if you like this kind of thing, you like the news, you like the legal panels, please consider subscribing. Tell a friend. Until next time.